stuff, a shopping mall for their consulate, and they're building permanent bases there, and they're just stealing the oil, and it's ridiculous. The democracy, which demos means people power, demos kratos, the majority will of the people of Iraq say, please God, get these foreigners out of our land. And America and the military's families are speaking out, and families like never before are mobilized around the world to protest this invasion and occupation, which is illegal. It's just, what do? We got a criminal sociopath in the White House who has taken over our government, shredded the Constitution and Bill of Rights, and is insisting on a fascist agenda of a new world order.
But you weren't surprised when it happened, right? Because I know I wasn't surprised at all after reading this book.
Oh, about the World Trade Center?
Yeah, he said it was going to happen.
What's funny, Dyandria, is I remember that very day, September 11th. I was in New York. I ran into you. Remember on the streets?
Yes.
And I had my video camera. We were freaking out.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, everyone was coming out of the streets and pulling out. It was going, oh, we're under attack, we're under attack. And I saw you with a little mask on laughing, said, see, we knew we were coming. Look at this. It was like you were reading from the book already. And Kathy O'Brien, who explained about, hey, watch it, they're going to take away our controls and rights because you terrorize someone. That's how they mind control people. They terrorize them.
Frank, when and where is this demonstration, and how can we get there?
Oh, yeah, buses are leaving tomorrow at Union Square at 6 a.m. And if you call Answer right here, Answer and not in our name, and the world can't wait. And Answer Coalition, the phone number is 212-694-8720. Again, 212-694-8720. There are lots of buses leaving from Union Square, and also in Chinatown by the Williamsburg Bridge. They have cheap little $15 buses to D.C. And then the Greyhound. Just get down to Washington. And there's a march on the Pentagon. And
what's that number again?
212-694-8720. And it's our right and duty. How did the women get the vote? How did the black people get the vote? How did we get out of Vietnam? We marched in the streets. A lot of people say it's useless and stupid, but we exercise our rights, and as long as we're free, or we think we're free, or we have the last grasp of freedom, we can manifest. Even if we're in a dictatorship and ruthless dictatorships, the people are out on the street manifesting and trying to protest and say, you got to go. You don't represent us. Storm the Bastille. I'm sorry.
It was our protest that stopped the Vietnam War eventually.
Yeah.
It was us fighting.
The troops that were doomed to suffer the vexation of Vietnam, murdering their officers had a lot to do with it also.
600 commanding officers were murdered by our own guys. Did you know that?
That was known as fragging your officers. And it was, the term came from the use of the fragmentation grenade, which would be the pin would be pulled on it, it would be thrown into the officers' quarters.
Oh, wow.
And that more than the protests in the street probably accelerated the end of the Vietnam War.
What's underreported is a lot of AWOL, absent without leaves, and mental crazy people going crazy, dehydration. You got 120 degrees in the full armor suit. There's no fresh water in Iraq. It is a disaster zone, and there's massive immigration out of Iraq like never before. All the Iraqis are leaving. They're going nuts. And James Steele, one of the dark figures, and of course Negroponte, was ambassador to Honduras during the 80s of the dark period of death squads with headless people and terrible terrorizing,
murdering.
That same tactic is going on in Iraq. It's the same dirty BS of terrorizing the people, fomenting civil strife to justify, we have to be there till it calms down. It's never going to calm down. But you know what? The Shiites and the Sunnis, they've lived side by side for thousands of years. This is an ancient culture. They wouldn't bomb each other's mosques. I'm sorry. This whole thing, the invasion and the shock and awe continues. And the Pentagon just loves it. They know war. They're like kids playing with firecrackers who are out of control.
You know, Joe had just mentioned something to me. There are some people, it's so sad and so hard for me to believe, but there are people that are so apathetic. Could you please tell the story you just told to me before we started the show?
Well,
about a fellow worker.
When you speak to a surprising number of people, when you tell them such things as World Trade Center Building Number 7, which has been a complete media blackout on World Trade Center 7.
Which incidentally, folks, is a 47-story skyscraper that came down at 5:20 in the afternoon of September 11, 2001.
Right.
It just collapsed in its footprints within 10 seconds. It was obviously controlled demolition.
When you tell a surprising number of people out there that the only logical explanation for the downing of that building, for the destruction of that building, is that it was rigged with pre-planted high-tech explosives. When you speak to them about the anthrax scare, right? And you present to them the idea
that congressmen who raised questions and to muzzle them and keep them
that
quiet,
was,
like Paul Wellstone,
that was,
because it's like they got a criminal mafia in the White House, and you guys can't even vote against us or talk. They terrorized Washington D.C. with a sniper too. Who was Muhammad? Right. He was an ex-Marine. All these people, and like last night in the village, we had another Marine gone wacko who started killing people.
Yeah.
Where you know, Marines are trained to kill, and they have psychological adjustment when they come back from the battle zone to detox and reconfigure themselves into society.
Well, these people who don't care, these are the kind of types of people who think that Oswald killed Kennedy. I mean, this is the mentality we're dealing with. No, that's what I'm saying. I said the people who actually are apathetic about this war and go, oh, yeah, we need to do this, are the same type of people who believe that Oswald killed Kennedy.
Yeah, well,
that's what I'm
I invite anyone to take the Zapruder film you get in any library and just slow it down frame by frame, and you'll simply
see the driver turns around and blows his head off.
No, the driver did not turn. I'm sorry. That is something that William Cooper expostulated, but I disagree with it. And maybe it's true. I don't know. But I've looked at it carefully, frame by frame by frame. It's the shadow. It's he does turn around, but he's not holding the pistol. But whether or not is the driver or it's from the grassy knoll, the important thing is that the trajectory of the criminal bullet came from the front because Kennedy's head was knocked backwards.
Yes.
His head exploded open and it was knocked back. So that's where the bullet came from, the murdering bullet. You see it on the Zapruder film. So anyway, Warren Commission whitewashed the crime of the century.
And they destroyed the car the following day.
There you go.
Never destroy a crime scene.
So Gerald Ford, our only unelected president, who was a pedophile that created the pedophile ring with Kathy Bryan and other people, was pushed into office, and he immediately pardoned Nixon. And who was Ford's chief of staff? Dick Cheney. So Dick Cheney has a dark history going way back of obfuscating the truth from the people. He's a very cruel man. He likes to shoot people in the face.
Lyndon Johnson was president after Kennedy.
Yeah.
No, I know, but it was Gerald Ford who was on the Warren Commission. The Warren Commission was supposedly the official explanation of the assassination. Also, Alan Dulles was on the Warren Commission. He was head of the CIA that JFK fired.
But if we wanted to go back a little further, I mean, this book, Behold the Pale Horse,
Did you get a chance to read this?
Yes, 1993, right?
Yes.
If you go back a little further, you got the Northwoods document. And part of the Northwoods document was a document that was set forth by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, signed off by Lyman Limnitzer, who was chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? And the plan was to create a deception to foster public support for the invasion and the destruction of Fidel's government, the revolutionary government of Fidel Castro.
They included
to
using
invade,
planes as weapons
right,
and killing
Americans. To fly planes in an intersecting pattern with the island of Cuba and a select passenger list, and then destroy those planes, blame it on Cuba. And also, the backup plan was if a mishap had occurred with the attempt of John Glenn to orbit the Earth, they were going to blame that on Cuban electronic interference. So to create that deception, and if you want to go back further than that,
fired him. They said, "Limnitzer, you got to go. You're nuts. That's wacko."
That's why they killed him.
But the cabal that was into it somehow got back into power. Bush and Cheney and this nasty gang that said, "Oh, Limnitzer, let's go. Let's kill our own people."
But JFK also took measures to start dismantling the CIA.
He fired Alan Dulles. Same with Jamie Connery. He fired George Bush as chief of CIA in 1976 when Orlando Letelier was car bombed in Washington, D.C., and replaced him with Stansfield Turner and cleaned house.
Most importantly, Kennedy was going to put our dollar back into the Treasury instead of the Federal Reserve.
Right, have a debt-free economy. Same thing with Lincoln with the greenbacks after the Civil War. Wanted to have a debt-free economy. He got off, then Kennedy got off for trying to have a debt-free economy. The Federal Reserve is obviously part of the manipulating force that is not a government agency. It seems like the Federal Reserve. No, they're a private consortium of bankers.
That's right.
It's a private banking cartel. And if you want to go back further, as far as the precedent for 9/11. If you want to go back further than that,